Welcome back, or welcome for the first time to Surprisingly, where I sit down with someone I don't know and get to know them just a little bit. I'm your host, Bridget Denahan. I'm a music appreciator and a complete novice in that subject and so many others. Good thing for you and me, in Dave Brown's second episode, we talk a lot more about music, the beautiful practice of gardening, and why the heck a guy would hitchhike across the entire country for the better part of 3 years, and how. Here we go, weirdos.
I was kind of spinning out of control, and two of my professors had an intervention.
Really?
And convinced me into dropping out of college. They were like, you have gotten everything out of this you can. You don't want to be here. Your writing reflects that. You need to go out into the big bad world and find what you're looking for.
Good for those professors.
I am so thankful for them.
How not by the book and lovely is that they were like, they're not just teaching you, they're seeing you as a person, as an individual, not just as a body to make money for the university that you were at, but like, hey, man.
So I dropped out of college and... like I said, my mind was kind of shattered, and I just started drifting from town to town, and this was before the internet. Mm-hmm. And, if you wanted to know what was happening in Seattle, you had to go to Seattle.
Better drive your ass there.
Well, or stick out your thumb.
And,
so I spent 3 years hitchhiking across the United States. When I had money, I would take the Greyhound. Because hitchhiking, as romantic as it seems, is pretty tedious in a lot of ways.
Oh, sure.
And kind of dangerous a handful of times. But what was really beautiful about the hitchhiking, though, was that 90% of the people that picked me up were just blue-collar people trying to help somebody.
Yeah.
They were wonderful people. I'll never forget, I'd spent the night in the woods outside of Houston and woke up the next morning and walked down to the highway, and this guy, a construction worker, picked me up and just gave me his brown sack lunch because he was like, you need this more than I do, kid. And then dropped me off east of Houston. I was going west. Oh, my gosh. It took me the entire day to walk across
you paid for that
the
lunch.
length of, oh, yeah. But I walked from East Houston to West Houston, and what I realized at one point was there was just no point in putting out your thumb because it's 5 lanes going in the same direction. Everyone who's in the lane that can pull over to pick you up is getting off the next exit. And so I just had to walk. At some point my heels were bleeding. It was awful. But, I finally got picked up and kept going on my way back to San Antonio.
Now, when you were hitching, did you have, obviously you had certain destinations in mind, and were these places that my question is twofold. Were they just places you wanted to see or places where you had people, or both?
Both.
Okay.
Sometimes no people.
Okay, brave soul.
But always just somewhere where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And that year, in 91, I had addresses in 6 cities, and I went back to San Antonio early that year. Oh, that was after the war. That's why I started hitchhiking. When I set out, the U.S. had invaded Iraq for the first time. And, of course, pre-internet, word on the street was that they were going to start drafting at age 22, which I think was how old I exactly was at that time. And so I waited for the best break in the weather and started hitchhiking in February going south. I was trying to get to San Francisco because Oakland and San Francisco had declared themselves draft-free zones that would protect anyone who declared themselves a conscientious objector. And of course, got to San Antonio. By the time I got there, I mean, the war was over so quickly, just you realize that the real fighting or the reason that they would draft was quickly over, no matter how long the occupation was. So I stayed in San Antonio for a little bit and then set out for Albuquerque because I loved the Neil Young song Albuquerque and didn't know anyone there. But got there, stayed there for a few months. That was an amazing time for me. One of my favorite things, I worked in a restaurant for 3 Hispanic sisters who had immigrated from Juarez in their restaurant. And I learned all about just the beauty of New Mexican food, which is all about the green chili. And, I rented a little room. It was wonderful, crazy. There were some days where I couldn't eat. There were days where I didn't have a refrigerator, but I remember buying a 40 of Miller High Life and drinking half of it one day and saving the other half to drink the next day.
Well, sugars, at least.
Yeah, well,
if you're hungry.
Warm Miller High Life, a half a 40 of warm High Life when you have nothing in your stomach the next day was...
How are your poops?
I don't remember specifically, but I doubt they were very consistent.
Yeah.
But that was a great time. I love New Mexico. I love that area. And from there, I hitchhiked. I got it in my mind that I wanted to work in the fishing canneries in Alaska. And so back then, you would, I think I paid $40 for a book that had the addresses of all the fisheries in it, which was an astronomical amount of money to me at the time. And I remember having to specifically eat less that week to pay for all the postage stamps to mail out all of my applications. And so I mailed out all my applications, got responses from X number of companies, and set out hitchhiking. I went from Albuquerque to Seattle. Got to Seattle and passed my drug test. There were 5 companies, I think, that I'd gotten job offers from, and I chose Icicle and went to work for them. And
in Alaska. Okay.
And we got put on a bus and sent to Bellingham, Washington, and shipped out from there. And I'll tell you, it was one of my favorite days of my existence. I turned 23 on the back of a boat, reading a John Irving novel, watching dolphins and orcas play in the wake of the boat, and not a single person knew it was my birthday. It was spectacular in that it was just a day of reflection, meditation, and thinking about life. And
how many months in is this? You said you hitched for about a year, right?
Over the course of 3 years.
Oh, 3 years. Okay. So where in your journey was it? Was this like year 1?
This was year 1.
Okay,
yeah.
got it. Okay.
So I went from there. I got to Alaska, and then that. Oh my gosh, that was just one of the most brutal things I've ever endured. And
would you like to talk about it, Dave? Because
sure.
we'd love to hear about it.
Well, I'm very thankful for it because it taught me how much I could push myself to attain what I wanted.
You didn't go to war, but here you are.
I didn't go to war. I was...
Far be it for me to compare those things. That's half joke, but
right.
Those things are both difficult in their own ways.
Well, I was a middle-class kid, and my parents were not giving me money and supporting me. I was supporting myself at the time. And,
I like the cut of their jib.
Yeah. But what I'm getting to is I was in it for the money and the job in Alaska, and I had heard about you can make some serious jack with this,
Yeah.
And
because it's dangerous as fuck. Need fresh content like social and web assets, copywriting, and more? Visit freshconsumables.com.
It is, but I got there, of course, and it was just bad timing, an awful year. I got to Seattle, and I was living in a rent-by-the-week hotel room where I think they had a rule that was you had to pay $20 for any non-resident to go upstairs, and that was to prevent drug sales.
I was going to say, was that for the hookers?
No,
for the working girls. Okay,
probably for the working girls too. But,
yeah.
it was nuts. I mean, I was upstairs, and some guy died in the lobby one day, and I was just too tired to get out of bed to go down and see what it was about. But it was that kind of place. Anyway, I got there with like $108, I think, and rented the room and expected to ship out fairly quickly. And I got hired, and 2 days after I got hired, the fishermen went on strike because Japan had flooded the market with surplus salmon from the year before, and the prices fell out. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden I was stuck in Seattle with no money. And it was nuts. You talk about what you can put yourself through. The room was about $100 for the week, and I think I bought a $2 pouch of roll your own tobacco, mm-hmm. and then at the Pike Place Market, carrots were 3 pounds for $1, and I bought 9 pounds of carrots, and all I ate for 4 or 5 days was raw carrots. And, when you start to poop orange, you start to question your choices in life, But the cool part about it, I was laying in that room, I believe it was at the Moore Hotel, and they had a crummy little black and white TV in the room, and I was watching Excalibur, the movie, mm-hmm. and it kind of gave me hope to keep going. And I had something similar to that in Albuquerque. After I'd gotten there, I was trying to find a job, and I'd gone and put in an application at a place called the Route 66 Diner, I think, and I went and I went and ate, and like the only cash I had $1 to my name, and I bought a side dish of refried beans for 60 cents, mm-hmm. and that was it. That was all I had to eat for the day. And I remember going after that and sitting on the railroad tracks and started crying. Mm-hmm. I was just like, what am I going to do? But I had seen on the wall of the restaurant, Garcia's Kitchen, a poster of Emiliano Zapata. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know who he was at the time, but under it, all it said was, I would rather die standing in my boots than to ever continue while living on my knees. And, when you see things like that, little things like that keep you going somehow, some way.
Yeah. And
same thing with Excalibur. It was just, do not give up hope. Keep pushing yourself. And once I got into Alaska and into the factories, that was really important because it was hard to get through that, Yeah. I got put on a factory line at the end of the line where my job was to work the door of a vat that fed you all of the salmon that had already had the head, tail chopped off, and the guts cleaned out. Mm-hmm. And there were 4 guys at that station, and we just pushed the salmon in a specific pattern into the grinder that would grind it and then put it in the cans, and mm-hmm. then it would be heat treated and all of that. And that was so crazy. We worked 14 hours on the clock every day, 7 days a week, every single day I lifted 200,000 pounds of salmon by hand every single day. And, you know, I had to wear wrist splints. The carpal tunnel got so bad, knee braces, a back brace. I developed what they call fish rash, which is from the contaminants in the ocean. And, you know, from my wrist to my shoulder, my arms were swollen and blistered red. And on my lunch hour every day, I would have to go to the nurse, get gauze soaked in iodine and wrapped
Good Lord.
on my arms, wrapped in cellophane to keep the water off of it, just to keep working. You know, you would get a break. You know, I remember, I think they were every 2 hours. You got a 10-minute break or something. I remember running outside and just when I smoked cigarettes. And I remember like lighting 2 cigarettes at a time and smoking them both to try and get enough nicotine to push myself through. And we would clock in every morning at 8 and clock out at midnight, 7 days a week. And
how much did you make for a week like that?
Per week, I don't remember. The big part, you made most of your money from the bonuses. And we lost time because of the fishing strike before. So we didn't set sail until, I think, July 9th, something like that. And, you know, I would have shipped out in May. So we lost 2 months there.
So you're working in the packaging factory until the time when it's time to get on the boat. Is that right?
No. We lived on the boat, worked in a factory on shore.
Okay.
I got really lucky that way in that originally I was supposed to be on a floating processor in Dutch Harbor and not see land for 3 months. But for whatever reason, they diverted us to Mitkoff Island, Petersburg, Alaska. And so the boat was docked, and every morning I picture it for some reason out of the Pink Floyd movie, The Wall, where we just walked down the gangplank directly into the factory. Just this line of workers walking straight into the grinder.
No education.
Exactly. And, you know, so that was life for 3 months. It was crazy too, because I lived in a dorm room with 11 other guys. I saw fights break out over your socks stink. Oh yeah, smack, bam, crash. You know, it was horrible. And some of the guys told stories of like crab season and just all kinds of horrific stuff. It was brutal. It was awful. But
and yet, Dave, you put yourself in that situation. Did you ever think, I could just call my folks?
No, calling the folks was not really an option.
Tell me why.
Well, maybe pride. And the biggest part was they got you in the contract. If you quit, you had to pay for your passage back to the lower 48, which was super expensive. Like I said, all of the production bonuses were way off. I was expecting to make $15,000, $20,000 and walked out with $5,000. But the best part about that, you know, there's the silver lining always, we hope. I got out finally. Oh my gosh. So Mitkoff Island, by the way, is in a rainforest, and technically. And the last month and a half I was there, we did not see the sunshine once. Not once. And it was Alaska, so it never really got dark. It would get kind of gray from midnight to 4 a.m., you know. And it rained steadily, and there was no sunshine. And oh my gosh, when we finally got in the plane to get back, I signed on for an extra bonus season to make more money because we just had not made any money. And I worked through October on halibut and black rockfish. Anyway, we finally got on a plane, and when the plane broke through the clouds, and grown men crying everywhere.
I bet.
from seeing the sunshine again. I mean, like when we landed in Seattle, I saw a guy throw himself on the tarmac and kiss the tarmac.
I believe it.
You know, and we were flying out on this tiny little prop plane. It was insane. It was like every time, it was an island hopper, and every time he would dive down into the next island to pick up more passengers, you're thinking, what is this guy doing? There's nothing but water on that side, and a strip like this, maybe 10 feet wide in the middle where he's going to land this plane. Anyway, we get back to Seattle, and I got on a bus and went down to Portland, Oregon. I used to stay in Portland with my buddy Scott Chook when I was traveling, and stayed with him for about a week and a half to decompress. Portland's a great town to do that in. Hippie central back then. It was awesome. And then from there, I took a bus. I took the bus from there to Provo, Utah, so I could get off the bus, even with money in my pocket, and hitchhike my hitchhiker's dream, Route 666, through the desert. And that was just amazing. That was so beautiful. I love the Southwest, and crazy. There's so many people that pick you up. The people who pick you up hitchhiking, most of them are blue-collar people trying to help somebody. Like I said, some of them are just out and out as nuts as you are. And I hitchhiked from Provo to Durango, Colorado, and spent the night there. And then from there back to Albuquerque. It was nuts. I got picked up by two girls who had just gotten kicked out of college, out of BYU, because they were Mormons, and one of their mothers found out that she had drank a beer or something and literally flew to school, talked the dean into throwing them out. So they were on their wild weekend going to Albuquerque.
For a beer.
Yeah, and gave me a ride. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so I get back to Albuquerque to pick up a suitcase that I had with me, and got back on a bus, took a bus from there to San Antonio, stayed with friends there. That was a momentous stop for me in that it was where I got my first Townes Van Zandt music, which, are you familiar with Townes? Oh,
no.
my gosh. So Townes is...
Am I embarrassing you, Jonathan? No. Do you know this person? Yes. Okay.
Townes is a very obscure figure to most Americans, most people.
Educate me, I'm ready.
He was the songwriter. I was a Dylan nut until I heard Townes Van Zandt. Still am a Dylan nut, don't get me wrong. But the year I was dropping out, I'd gone to the Kerrville Folk Festival. And the cool part about Kerrville is when you're sitting around the campfires at night, all of the performers that you saw during the day hang out at the campfires at night.
And where is this?
Kerrville, Texas.
Texas, okay.
Central Texas.
Okay.
And that was the first place I ever met Rosie Flores. She's great guitar player. You would dig her. I think you would. But she had played that day, and she's hanging out playing dobro for the first time. And this is like where it comes into the small world connection stuff. We've had Rosie play at our venues, and I brought it up to her one night. I was like, hey, I was just a kid, but I was sitting around the campfire in Kerrville while you were playing dobro, and your backup singer was singing all these Mother Maybelle and Everly Brother and Beatles songs. And she just kind of laughed and looked at me. She was like, that was the first time I'd ever played dobro in front of people.
Oh, wow.
And so anyway, while I was there, I saw a performer named Butch Hancock, Texas songwriting legend, and he had a little cassette for sale that is maybe one of the most fantastic things ever put to recording. It was never pressed a CD even, never pressed a vinyl. It was only cassette tape. I have looked for that since, and it was never released in any other form. If you can find Butch Hancock's Split and Slide Part 2, I believe, buy it instantly. And I can burn you a copy now. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But
hook us up.
it is just one of the, as far as writing, it is stunning in that he sings individual songs, character-driven songs.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the final song, which is like 8 minutes long or something, all of these characters come together randomly and meet. And then it's about that. And the first 2 songs on the album, though, were Poncho and Lefty and Mr. Mud and Mr. Gold. And in the writing credits, it said T. Van Zandt. And so I got back to San Antonio, and I had a buddy named Greg Holcomb who he had worked at Kerrville. And but when I was hitchhiking through the year before, I had asked Greg, I'm like, who is this T. Van Zandt dude, you know? And I got, oh my gosh, this is another just so special to me story. He took me out to the Cibolo Creek Country Club, which was this little wooden plank honky-tonk outside of San Antonio. And I got to see Townes Van Zandt and Guy Clark do a show together where nobody opened. They both came out on stage. There were 2 bar stools, a little table sitting between them. They sang a song or 2 together that they both knew. Then one would sit down and light a cigarette while the other one sang a couple of songs and just trade off the whole night. Well, anyway, so I got back to San Antonio and I ran into Greg and I was like, dude, I got to get some of this Townes Van Zandt because that guy just blew me away. And he took me to the local record store and got me Townes Van Zandt live at the Old Quarter. And also Guy Clark's first album, Old Number One. And to me, it's such a romantic, poetic, however you want to describe it. You know, I heard Townes Van Zandt's live at the Old Quarter for the very first time in the middle of the night on a Greyhound bus all alone on my way to New Orleans. And it electrified me. It was like nothing. It was so intense and so deep and so beautifully crafted, like nothing I had ever heard. You know, beyond Dylan in its own way. Dylan's awesome, don't get me wrong. And that whole Steve Earle thing about standing on a coffee table, Bob Dylan's coffee, blah, 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 well-known story. Anyway, it mesmerized me. And I got to New Orleans. I had gone to New Orleans the year or 2 before to pick up a friend from college who had gotten stuck there. And while we were there, we went down to the French Quarter, and I saw a woman in a red dress singing and playing Robert Johnson songs in the middle of the street on an overturned fruit crate and was in love. And I thought, man, that's where I need to be. I need to be around people like that. And so I absorbed this Townes Van Zandt album, which is a very...
Oh, excuse me.
Hello.
That is a spam call.
Hey, now.
Okay. So you absorbed
Townes Van Zandt, and I just started learning every song off of it that I could, and it connected me with who is now one of my dearest friends from that time, a guy named Chris Corbell, who he and his wife live out in Oregon now, outside of Portland, but Belle and I connected and bonded over just getting together and playing these amazing songs that, like I said, this was before the internet. Mm-hmm. And so everything was kind of chance if you heard it. Whether you heard it or not, you might go your whole life and never have heard any of this stuff. All of this is like, it's the series of minor miracles, you know? And Bell was a guitar player as well, and best musician out of all of us little street urchins playing in the streets down there. And it's funny. He, like I said, lives outside of Portland now, but I flew out to Portland a few years ago to catch the first opera he had ever written. And it's weird when you start thinking about people your age writing operas.
Oh, wow.
You know? But, of course, it was an opera about a stripper who flew home to Minnesota and confronted her family with being a stripper over the Christmas holidays.
Of
Awesome.
course it is. I want to see that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I met said stripper while I was there. The after party was out of control. It was nuts.
This was based on a true story.
Oh, based on a real person.
Neat.
I bought from her 45 single, where her and her vocal group did medieval type vocal singing, doing the theme song for Voodoo Donuts.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Hey, Portland.
Yes.
So anyway, I get to New Orleans and started meeting people and playing with people, and Townes Van Zandt just turned my artistic literary world upside down. New Orleans was great. Some of my favorite times. I was there for 6 months.
Wow.
The first job I got was a place called Deja Vu, not the adult entertainment Deja Vu, but a little restaurant bar called Deja Vu that delivered food. And I delivered food on a bicycle through the French Quarter when I was 23 years old.
Oh, wow.
I thought I was the king of the world. One of the most stunning visual towns in the U.S. With the architecture of the French Quarter, and that's what I got to look at all day long as I'm driving, my little bicycle through all of those.
It is incredible.
It was funny because the food was so bad. People used to boo me in the street. People used to scream "Deja puke" at me and throw things at me. Cab drivers thought it was a fun game to try and swerve into you and push you off into the gutter.
Oh, that bad, huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, not just Deja Vu for all the delivery drivers. That was just cab drivers being mean. But I ended up getting food poisoning from them and quit. And
so everybody was right.
Oh, gosh.
It was deja vu. Puke.
Yeah, it was. Well, that wasn't even why I quit. I quit when they wanted to work me 8 hours on, 8 hours off, 8 hours on again. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, this is one of the 2 jobs in my life I've ever walked out on in the middle of a shift, backing out, flipping the bird, saying, "You are horrible people."
And that wasn't even your fishing job.
No. But from there, I went to New York City, and that was a really fun trip because I back then they had this business called Auto Drive Away or something like that, and you put down a deposit on a car. Mm-hmm. You paid for the gas, but it was people that needed cars driven from one place to another.
Oh, brilliant!
And so
sure.
I was going to use this service, and I got hired to drive a car to Three Rivers, Canada, and then I was going to New York City after that. But the best part was my buddy Cheese wanted to ride with me, and Cheese, this was 92, 92, and so this was so not common back then, but Cheese was a true street anarchist who had crazy dyed hair, had the big earlobe, I'm not sure what they're called, but
are they called
spacers?
Plugs or spacers, yeah.
Pierced all over through his face. And Cheese shows up to raise money for his part of the journey. He had gone to Jackson Square and put up a little table and gotten a bunch of pie tins and tons of whipped cream, saying he had a little sign that said, call me dirty names for 50 cents, pinch my nipples for $1, or throw a pie in my face for $2.
Oh,
And he
I like
showed
this
up
hustle.
with a stack of Jack so thick. Oh my gosh.
it's because the people are angry. That's why. Like, it worked because the people are angry.
Maybe.
And they want somewhere to put it, and he delivered.
Maybe Cheese was just begging it, like egging them on, But we drove from New Orleans to New York City first. And the funniest part of that, he taught me how to dumpster dive.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so
Give the listeners your 3 best dumpster diving tips.
Well, I'm not sure what it's like now, but then the biggest score, McDonald's, at approximately 10:40 a.m. Because by law they have to take all of the breakfast sandwiches off of the heating pad 7 or 8 minutes after they're cooked. Breakfast stops at 10:30, so by 10:38, all of those sandwiches have to be thrown away. And
As a company and agency, we do not endorse this information. Legal things here, legal things there. Go ahead.
So anyway,
Try at your own risk. So that's number 1. So
well, the best part about the story is the car we were driving was a fairly expensive car. It was a really nice car. And there, Cheese and I, outside of some nice European car, in a dumpster, grabbing big sacks of big breakfast Max, McBreakfast, whatever, and this voice coming over the intercom, "Get out of the dumpster now. We are calling the police. Get out of the dumpster now." And so we're running, get in the car with a big sack of breakfast sandwiches and run to the nearest 7-Eleven, whatever, and say, "Hey, mister, can we use your microwave?" And heating them up. And that's how we fed ourselves, at least, for a couple of days.
Oh, wow.
It was the craziest thing. We were almost to New York. We were in New Jersey, and we had pulled over at a rest stop, and we're sitting on a picnic table, and I told you how crazy at the time Cheese looked, and this Mississippi State Trooper or New Jersey State Trooper pulls over, and he's asking us these questions, but the first thing he says is, "Are you boys from Hollywood?"
Yes. Yes, sir, we are.
"No, sir, we're from your worst nightmare." But he was nice. He was really just more curious about who we were and why we were.
Yeah.
But we got to New York. I dropped Cheese off, drove the car to Canada, and then took a Greyhound back to New York. And I was intent on living in New York, but right before I had left New Orleans back in the day, before the internet, I had gotten a letter through the U.S. Postal Service.
I've heard of him.
From one of my best childhood buddies, Chuck Newell, asking me to be the best man at his wedding. So I get to New York, I hung out for a month, and then hitchhiked from New York back to Chattanooga. And that was, oh my gosh.
When you're hitchhiking as your life's work, but you got a wedding to go to. Yeah.
Well, I needed to be there.
Yeah.
I'm here and I need to be over there. I ain't got no money. So you got to get there. And that was a crazy trip. And oh my gosh, I had one of, when you're hitchhiking, you meet the best and the worst of people. And I had gotten dropped off in Virginia and had, it was a fine trip before that. And, oh my gosh, this cop, highway patrol, pulled over, and it was just the stereotype, the guy in the big hat and the mirrored sunglasses. And he comes up to me and he's like, "Boy, what are you doing on my highway?"
Oh, my.
And I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm just trying to get home." And he starts yelling at me. And
what did he pull you over for?
Well,
Pull you over.
Yeah. he said, I'm going to go back to the car and I'm going to call you in and see what I can arrest you for. Because I'd given him my driver's license, and he just assumed that I was a criminal, and I'm just a poor kid trying to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And he goes back and calls me in, and I'm not a criminal. There are no warrants out for my arrest, which angers him even more.
Dang it.
And he comes back and he's just screaming, and he's so mad. He's bright red. He's just like, first of all, I'm writing you a ticket for pedestrian on interstate.
Okay, buddy.
Second of all, I'm going to watch you hike your ass back up that on-ramp and get off of my highway. And if I catch you on my highway by sundown and you don't have $50 on you, your ass is going to jail, and I'm going to put you under the jail, and ain't nobody going to know about you for 3 weeks.
Oh, he threatened to murder you.
Oh, yeah. So I'm just standing there. I'm like, I didn't have $50, That's why I was hitchhiking. And I go back up, I walk back up the on-ramp, and I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? How do I get out of this? And I crawled into a dumpster and pulled out a big box of cardboard.
Is this tip number 2?
Yeah. So, it's tip number 2 is, be quick on your feet.
Yeah.
And I pull this cardboard box out of a dumpster and rip it into one panel and walk into an Exxon station and ask if I can borrow a magic marker, and wrote a big sign that said, "Take me home for Easter, Tennessee." Mm-hmm. And, that's what got me picked up. And it was so funny because it was a woman who picked me up. And I told her, I got picked up by women occasionally. It was very rare. But each of them, I would tell them, hey, I'm not the guy that's going to hurt you, but you shouldn't be doing this. And she said, I had already passed you, but you looked so pathetic in my rear view mirror. I went to the next exit, turned around, and came back to get you.
Yeah.
And then...
You're welcome, and don't tell me what to do, man.
Yeah, mansplainer. Before that was even...
You're welcome for saving your ass out here.
Yeah. But the next, she dropped me off, and I was about to run off the road. It was getting towards sundown, and I was about to run off the road to sleep. You always go off the road to sleep. And this
Good
camper...
night, Dave. You're talking to people like everybody does it. They do not.
Well, the people who do know this. But I got picked up by these 2 crazy cats. And this might have been my first, it was one of my first brushes with Nashville. They were a husband and wife who lived in their camper and were on their way to Nashville to be singer-songwriters.
Okay.
It was awesome.
Full circle.
And fed me like microwave dinners or whatever. They were campfire dinners, I think, in aluminum foil. Fed me and got me to Nashville. Or I think, no, they dropped me off in Knoxville because I was going to Chattanooga.
A little bit further,
yeah. And, down 75. And, So that was 91 or 92, the first couple of years of hitchhiking.
Jeez Louise. Okay, so in summary, what are the top 2 things that you learned about yourself? And I want to take it back to the beginning when you first started telling me these stories. And that is that you were running away from something that wasn't serving you for a good purpose. It's always good if you're running for the right reasons. Number 2, you were in your grief at that time. So in some ways, probably processing that. And the veil had been lifted in some sort of way. Mm-hmm. What did you? Now you said you did this off and on for 3 years. Mm-hmm. What are the 2 things that you took away from that weird ass experience? That sounds like it was extremely valuable to you.
The first thing, it restored my faith in humanity at a very, very dark time in my life. Like I said, it taught me 90% of people are good, and that's hard to remember sometimes. The second thing, always be ready and be quick on your feet, because you just don't know what's coming at you. Yeah, those are the two things, the best things I learned.
Well, Dave, I have to say, what's our time check, my love? Hour 40. Okay. I have to say, when you came in here, much like when everybody comes in here and sits with me, I have no earthly idea what I'm in for.
Right.
I love that we spent some time talking about your career, what you do for a living now. But I certainly did not expect that we would go on this very surprising journey of you talking about how physically you got to where you are today. I think the thing that I'm thinking of right now is how fascinating it is that you described your upbringing as middle class. And yet I don't think a lot of people are brave enough to put themselves in a position where your pride was bigger than your, and forgive the clunky phrasing, but your pride was bigger than your resources. Like, you could have at any point had a sandwich in your belly. Now, it would have been hard to probably get back home at any given point, but there must have been some deep part of your soul that just knew that you were living on your own terms and that you had to do it.
That was the point. That was the point. It was, if you weren't living on your own terms and getting out of this life what you want out of it, I hate to say, losing, but if we think about life as the game, then you're not winning. I mean, most people exist and get through life, and I don't know. I don't know what it's like for other people, and I don't want to be judgmental at all.
Yeah.
And I try not to be these days. Everybody's got their own burdens, and everybody has to get through life. For me, I was a kid from a small town who just, all I wanted was to know what the world was about. And like I said, pre-internet days, you couldn't just type into your phone, hey, what's Albuquerque like? I loved it because of a Neil Young song. I was young and free with nothing to do, and that's funny. That's, speaking of freedom, one of the things that was just imprinted in my mind so deeply into my soul, when I was hitchhiking to Seattle from Albuquerque, I'd gotten a ride that pushed me north of Denver and dropped me off outside of Sheridan, Wyoming. And I got off the road, and there was this tree that had fallen that made the perfect hiding place for the night, where, it was propped up by its branches. So I got underneath it and slept there for the night. And I woke up the next morning around sunrise, and I went to the highway, and I had a frame backpack. I grew up, my parents were into backpacking, so I had a frame backpack. I was going to say,
clearly you had some, you aren't just sleeping. Are you sleeping on the bare ground, or did you have you are sleeping on the bare?
I had a sleeping bag.
You did have a sleeping bag? Okay.
You got to have a little bit.
A little bit of camping skills, a little bit of survival.
Yes.
Okay.
And I woke up and walked to the highway, and the sun was coming up, and I had on an overcoat, and the wind was blowing so hard, the neck flap, whatever, the lapel
was flapping,
was hitting me in the face, and I was just looking at how magnificent the surrounding countryside was. And it was literally like the Purple Mountain Majesty line out of that song when we were kids.
Oh, when you're up in that in those there parts, you have to say, like, this is God's country, like, because it looks.
But the most amazing part of that moment, this is way before cell phones. It just it dawned on me. this is freedom. Not a single person in the world knows where I am. I am absolutely and utterly free of everything right now. And that's kind of what I always wanted my life to be. And, most of what I've done through my life is pushing towards having the luxury of that freedom of, what Mike and I do with the basements. It's the drive. It was from the passion and love for music, but we found a way to make it work for us. And I think that's the lesson for anyone. Find something you love. Find what makes life worth living for you and make it work for you, and I hope people can do that for themselves. I want nothing more than to be an old man with nothing but a guitar and time.
That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Is that what, go ahead.
Oh, well, it's funny. I should mention, speaking of guitar and the whole songwriting thing that we got, I digress, I will ramble and digress often.
And we love that for us.
So this is really weird, but I just had my first song picked up and covered by another artist.
Shut the front door.
It was the most random thing, but my old buddy, Willie Heath Neal, he and his beautiful wife, Kira, have a band called the Waymores now. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, his manager had asked me, he knew that I was a songwriter from back in the old Radio Cafe days when he lived here. And he asked me for some songs for them for their upcoming album. One thing leads to another, and he and Kira ended up cutting my song, You're My Favorite Heartache. They call it Forever Fool, but it just came out on their album, The Knot, which was released, I think its official release date was February 28th.
Oh, very recently.
But I just drove to Atlanta to see their release show in Atlanta to hear them play, a song that I wrote. And I guess what I'm getting at is this being Nashville and everybody having that dream, that dream doesn't have to die. And no matter what, once you write that song, it can be there forever. And I wrote it in 2000, maybe 2001.
Yeah.
25 years after the fact, somebody gets a hold of it and wants to cut it and make it their own. And for me, that was the biggest honor and the most flattering thing, is that somebody else valued something that I wrote so much that they wanted to make it their own.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So
you seem like you're a grateful person. And I say that only because of the phrasing that you use when you were walking me through your hitchhiking journey.
Well, thank you.
You're like my husband. He always says multiple times a day, the good thing is, and then he'll say what he's going to say.
Yeah.
Even though both of us are kind of crotchety, negative Nellies, too.
You know what?
There are two sides.
It's so easy to get sucked down by
It
the
is.
negativity in the world. And, like we've touched on through the conversation, the game. I was a very negative person for a long time, especially in the aftermath of my friend Karen's murder.
Yeah.
And, I thought the world was a horrific place. But you know what? There's so much that is beautiful about humanity, and we're not there yet. We haven't solved war. We haven't solved famines. And, nature can be a brutal thing.
It's
but
true.
We as a species created music. We as a species
Bless it.
produced the Mona Lisa. We produced Hemingway and Steinbeck and Charles Bukowski and
Casey Musgraves.
and Maren Morris and
Thank
Sturgill.
goodness for those amazing, beautiful people making stuff that we love.
So years ago, it was another one of those epiphany moments where a friend of mine had come into the OG basement and said, well, hey, how you doing? And I was going on about how awful this was or how much this sucked.
The daily bullshit.
And she just looked at me and said, no, it doesn't. And it just dawned on me. I'm like, like the old, what was that soap opera, One Life to Live, something like that. The title. You've only got one life to live.
Yeah.
At least as far as I know. Here, right now, if this is all we get, do you want to go through it concentrating on what's negative? Or do you want to look at the true beauty in life and think, oh my God, the real miracle is not life, because life happens everywhere all the time, amoebas to, human beings. The real miracle is consciousness and awareness. And you can choose, do I want to go through my life thinking about the awful parts of life, or do I really, really want to look for what's beautiful? And, when I dropped out of college and started hitchhiking, I didn't know what I wanted to do until I fell backwards into the music venue business. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew what I didn't want to do, and I knew what I was trying to get away from. And as long as you're pushing yourself towards what you want to do, and you can find something beautiful in that, in my book, I guess you're the winner. You have won the game, and not that there's a winner or a loser, but you've played it right.
Well said, Dave Brown.
Well, thank you.
So a previous guest of ours had shared that the thing that he most liked to be asked is, how are you? So I'm going to ask, how are you? And I mean it.
Okay.
I want a detailed answer. And then I'm going to ask you, are there any questions? This one's first. Are there any questions that you wish that I would have asked you today? Something that you really wanted to talk about?
No.
No?
I loved the idea of walking into this blind and it just being totally spontaneous, freewheeling, off the cuff, whatever, wherever it went to.
You don't say, you freewheeling spirit, you. I had no idea.
Well, I thought we might talk about religion because, that theology was one of my last majors in college. And
you're shitting me.
No, it was one of the first power structures on the planet, and it's fascinated me forever.
Really?
Oh, yeah. But, it's like the two professors who talked me into dropping out of college were my theology professors.
Wow.
Mackenzie Brown and Paula Cooey. Props to you.
Yeah, shout out. Send this episode to them.
So, there's nothing that I wish you had asked me. I just, I'll talk about anything.
Speaking of theology, are you a spiritual and or religious person?
Non-religious. I study the Tao. I read my daily Tao every morning. It's a meditation. It's a philosophy, not a religion. It's funny, the biggest kick for me now after 3 decades in the nightlife, which, like I said, I was a middle-class kid from the suburbs. The nightlife was I was a big-eyed kid in the circus. And 3 decades in the nightlife, going to bed between 2 and 6 a.m. every night.
Yeah.
My big adventure now, I get up at 5 a.m., make a cup of coffee, and play guitar in solitude for an hour. And that's just
that's juicy.
Brightest, it's just, I love that. And the best part is I put down songwriting for 20 something years and have started writing again.
Love can always come back to you, right? Full circle. If you love it, it can always come back to you. Oh, that's yummy. Okay. Last question. And you have to answer it for real. That's
Okay.
my only rule. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How about that? Stacy and I just got back from an amazing vacation in Panama, which, by the way, that was kind of funny. I got stung by a scorpion while I was there.
Please do tell.
Something I had never really thought about happening to me, but
Where on your person?
Well, it was in bed. I was under the covers.
Woo!
We had gotten in bed for the night, and I was starting to read and thought a centipede was crawling up my thigh.
You were incorrect.
And because, all the little creepy crawly legs, and I put my hand down and realized it was not and tried to throw it. Mm-hmm. And it stung me in my middle finger on my right hand.
I want to know everything about it. Tell me exactly how it felt.
It hurt so bad. It was crazy.
Did you feel it in your face? Like your jaw hurt?
Well, the funny part about it, we were in a small town called Boqueta in the northwestern part of the country, in the coffee growing region. It was after dark. It was pouring rain, and we were an hour away from any hospital. And Stacy and I were frantically Googling, do you die from scorpion bites?
Thank you to the internet.
So I realized fairly quickly that odds were I would not die. And
thank goodness.
We stayed up for maybe another 2 hours. The pain started to subside.
After what? An
2
hour and a half?
hours.
Okay.
And
were you swelling up?
No, it didn't really swell up.
If you're not watching this podcast, and you probably are not watching it, you're probably listening to it, middle finger on the inside is where this man got stung.
Yeah.
Yikes.
By the next morning, not a blister, not anything. My finger was a little stiff.
Okay.
But that was that was pretty crazy.
That's wild.
But how am I? I survived a scorpion sting.
That's something.
The businesses are doing well. I have a wonderful relationship with a lady I love.
And you got berries for days.
Yeah. Oh, and Jonathan, you might dig this. I just got an ES335, which is another one of the guitars of my dreams. And boy, does it sound good. But
do you two want me to just walk out right now so you can spend the next 20 minutes?
Nerd out on guitars.
Yeah, he wishes. I'm looking at his eyes because I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I'm here to ask the questions, but
overall, life is pretty good. I am pretty good.
I believe you.
It's I'm very excited about this cold snap being over. I had already planted the first round of cool weather crops. We've got lots of peas and radishes and beets and carrots and lettuce and spinach growing. The cold snap got the collard greens, I think. I'm going to have to replant those and maybe a few radishes, but everything's looking good. Another month, I have, Stacy is so tolerant. Oh my gosh, thank you. I have a huge wooden pallet with 5 seedling troughs propped in the middle of our kitchen with grow lights, growing all of our tomatoes, tomatillas, eggplants, okra, and peppers for the season. I can start taking those out in the sunshine soon, and around April 15th, plant everything in the garden beds. And, I love it because, if we're animals, winter is time to rest and spring is the time to get it on and start doing stuff.
Amen to that. I always feel that in the winter where I'm like, I want to nap more, get a little seasy to preezy, as I say. And I think in some ways, not that we love it, but that is the natural course of things, and just allowing yourself to kind of nuzzle down is so important. And then, when the sunshine comes out, start humping up on things. Literally, figuratively, spiritually.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited. I didn't even tell you about our front yard.
What's
with
in
the
there?
hatred of grass, we spent 2 years tearing all the grass out of our front yard and made it into a butterfly sanctuary with nothing but flowers and fruit trees and a little gravel path that cuts through it with little benches to sit on. I love going out and having my coffee in the spring.
God damn it, Dave, because you're saying this in front of my husband, and we are very blessed to have about an acre that we're on. Yeah. And this man I bed down with at night so badly wants to plant our entire yard with wildflowers.
If you're ready to farm, I'm here for you, buddy.
Well, I know there are whole companies too that will actually cultivate your yard for you, which I think is such a beautiful exercise. And
Sure.
I know Jonathan and I don't necessarily have green thumbs, but he is learning through our daughter because she's very interested in growing things. And I definitely want to support her in that.
All three of you should come over once everything's growing in the spring.
Well, when we stop recording, I was going to say just that. I was going to force ourselves upon you. And if anything, like I said, I want to support our daughter in learning those things, and she can then teach me, even though, I pay top dollar for this manicure. I'd have to get some gloves. But we have such a big space and a big yard, and we do have lots of wildlife. We have a whole deer family that comes around every year and changes in size. One of those sweet little deer, even though Jonathan built a pretty tall, what was it, like a 4-foot cage.
Jumped right over?
It was such a small raised bed, and it just went in, and literally overnight, all the radishes, all the carrots gone, and the radishes had leaves about this tall.
Yeah.
So
And
they
at-
were getting ready.
And our daughter was so proud, and it was right before we left. We go out to Kansas, where I'm from, every summer, just the two of us for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This year, we're going to try to do a month out there. And she cried in the car
Leaving.
when she found out, because he had texted me and he said, "Tell her when you feel like it's appropriate, but the deer got her produce."
Oh.
And she did, and she welled up, and I thought, yeah, because you put your heart into that. And
Well, if I can give her a little bit of hope there.
Yes.
So we live right beside Shelby Park, and the deer walk down our street in the morning, and they munch in the front yard. They love the buds of the heads of sunflowers, by the way.
yes, we've tried that too.
Once out of all of the years I've been growing the gardens, they've hopped the back fence and done the buffet circuit all through the yard. But my philosophy or my method with nature, if you grow enough, it's kind of like I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church. You tithe 10%. And so I give my 10% to nature and I get the rest.
Yeah.
I had to build the berry cage. I had to stop growing certain types of foods because raccoons love corn and apples, by the way.
Oh.
So I try to adapt to nature.
Yeah.
And, grow the things that they can't get to or they don't want. Nature can still come through and get its share, and you can have the rest.
I like that, and I believe that too. And I know I just told her, I said, don't be discouraged. You learned something from it. First of all, your father learned something from it. We need that cage just a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And you win some, you lose some. Your wildflowers, my gosh, she's been planting wildflowers, she and Jonathan, for now 4 years. And I know I'm fully an old lady when I get jazzed about the birds that are coming to our bird feeders.
Yeah.
And having fresh wildflowers in the house, like I might cry a little bit. Like every time I cut some and put them in the house, I'm like, it's like prayer, man. It is so uplifting.
It's good for you.
And beautiful, and just looking at something that's lovely that nature made, that the hands of my beloveds have made. There's nothing like it, and it's the simplest thing. It's the simplest thing. So, which is, you've said that in more ways than one today.
You can always think about an enclosed cage like I had built, with the chicken wire, and it's 10 feet tall with chicken wire over the top.
Yeah.
Nothing can get in.
Dave, we're coming over, okay?
Come on.
Okay. Thank you, darling, for being here today. It's been a
Thank you
pleasure.
for having me.
You're most welcome. Not a guilty pleasure, just a straight up pleasure.
That's right. L'chaim. Cheers. Peace be with you, y'all.
And also with you, and also with your spirit, as they say. Our show is executive produced by Sherry Day, Farley Day, and John Arnold. Produced, edited, and engineered by Jonathan Kosick. Extra creative magic provided by other fine folks at our sister agency, Artists and Outlaws, including design by Josh Ford and digital management by Nate Hook. If you live in the Nashville area or are visiting soon and want to be a guest, email us at jonathan@freshconsumables.com. That's JONATHAN@freshconsumables.com. Want to hear more of Surprisingly's meaningful and unpredictable conversations? Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Bridget Dinahan. Thanks for listening.